What's up, plebs? We are down in Miami again. This is day 2 of the conference, really day 1 of the pleb conference, the real conference when everything goes down. And we want to talk about the Jack Mallers announcement, the strike announcement, and all that good stuff. We are here with me and Luke, as usual, but then we also have fellow plebs, Kane and Drew, joining us. We will tag them in the Twitter post so you guys know where to follow them. But we met them today and just kind of started hanging out. I guess this is how it happens at a Bitcoin conference. We all just kind of run into each other and make it happen. So anyways, before we get to that, I mentioned the sponsors at BitBox. Get your BitBox O2 and Movies Plus. If you don't know what they are, Google them, you'll find them. More on that later. But so day 2 of the conference, and the big news was that Jack Mallers got strike to make every merchant in the world accept Bitcoin, basically. Is that what you took away from it?
Jack Mallers has just kicked in the door on the legacy financial system. That's what I'm taking away from today's news. I'm still a little bit dumbstruck, but by the sounds of it, Jack Mallers has partnered with everyone. He's partnered with Shopify. Strike's partnered with the largest payment processing company in the world. That I think they actually fund and facilitate 15% of all transactions at all your kind of proof of sale locations all around the world. So moving forward, I think, Cory, we can go and whip out a private Bitcoin wallet. So you can use Zap, you can use Zeus, you can use your Moon wallet, and you can go buy a burger from McDonald's. You can go to Wendy's. You can go to, where do you like to get dinner, Cory, in America? Name a franchise.
Subway. I had Subway 2 nights in a row, so that would be Subway. It's like literally anything.
There you go. You can literally go and buy a sub, plebs, with a private Bitcoin Lightning network, and you can route the transaction over Tor anonymously, and boom shakalaka, you can pay with sats. That's what Jack Mallers has announced, and we just kind of saw that announcement live at Miami with about 20,000 other plebs. So we're pretty fired up. We've lost our voices, but it's been a pretty full-on day here in Miami, and that's the breaking news.
Yeah, and I'll be honest before I toss it around. I think that a lot of plebs, maybe I haven't checked on Twitter, so maybe people are cool with it. I think a lot of people are going to be sitting there going, "Oh, come on, we didn't get a big announcement. I wanted Apple Pay, or I wanted," which this is better than Apple Pay, or I wanted, me. I said the only thing that would blow me away was if Apple would add it to their balance sheet. Obviously, that didn't happen. But I think this is bigger. And I think a lot of people there might be a chance that people don't understand how important this is, and they kind of come away feeling a little underwhelmed. But it is way bigger than anyone's reacting to right now. That's what I took away from it. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it was huge. I think it's a game changer, paradigm shift. The world will be different tomorrow and going forward than ever before, because Jack and Strike basically, they built the network, built the Bitcoin network, built the Lightning network, built all this stuff to transfer money. But they said, let's don't worry about the transfer. It's the end piece, the component, the point of sale that is the big block that allows credit cards and banks to, hang on to their fees. And he said, let's just wipe that out. So on a go forward, when all this is put out, pretty much anywhere in the U.S., which means probably anywhere in the world, you can go. And as long as they've integrated that new point of sale, which they have the APIs up, available, and they'll continue to build out, you can use the Bitcoin network to basically start with dollars, end with dollars, start with euros, end with euros, whatever currency you want to use, or use Bitcoin if you want. So I think it was a huge paradigm shift, and probably the biggest thing fundamentally that has been out in a while.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's a really good kind of summary of it. That wasn't the only big news of today that went down as well. But before we move on to the next big news, we should throw it to a fellow Bitcoiner who has been on this podcast before, Drew McMartin, who's with us in person this time, so it's not over Zoom. In the flesh.
Nice to be back.
Yeah.
We're putting flesh to flesh now. That sounds great, especially in this hotel.
That's the story for another podcast, maybe, guys. But
A whole nother hour.
The one thing that I'm switching gears. The one thing I will say is innovation happens when it's like cheaper and faster and better for the end user. And if you're a merchant, this is cheaper and instant settlement. So like, have you ever tried to use a card at like a mom and pop shop for, a small purchase, $1 or $2 purchase? Like they get a little uppity, or they make you want to purchase because they're getting charged money for that.
Oh, I feel bad because they're getting hit with the 30 cents on top of the 2.9%.
Yeah.
30%.
Yeah. So this basically wipes that out. I mean, I don't know what the fee structure is. I don't think, did they cover that? I don't know. But
near zero.
Yeah, near zero. So I mean, obviously there's going to be a fee, but it's not going to be.
It's probably like half a percent. Like it's minimal.
And that's a big point because, up until now, if you're in a developed Western country, crypto, Bitcoin, all the different networks are awesome and they're cool, but they really weren't faster, cheaper, better than the Visa network. Right now, it has
to be better.
Yeah,
water always follows the path of least resistance. And if you're a merchant, why are you paying more for something that's slower?
But today, it's now truly better in all those different categories.
Yeah, like last year at the conference, like the first country announced legal tender. Like this allows any merchant to essentially make it legal tender under their own, and they can settle it back in dollars, but they don't have to, right? So it's huge.
Yeah. And it takes that price fluctuation. If you're, a seller of a good and you're concerned, you're like, I would love to receive Bitcoin, but I'm concerned that by the time I convert it to dollars, I'll lose. And it takes that piece. That's a key piece that's
gone.
Yeah, that's now gone.
Well, I mean, I think that, with Movies Plus, we have Here Comes the Shameful Plugging. Another thing that happens in this hotel. I digress. But yeah, like, so we, for example, if you're a monthly subscriber, like every month that the credit card runs, we get hit with the 2.9% and the 30%. Also, not to mention, if we're through Apple, if you buy through the app on the App Store, Google Play, we lose 15% to them. Whereas, like, so just even for us, as our business, I can integrate it, and people can pay directly with the payment rails that they're already using. And now I get 100% of the sale.
And another big point, talking about the tax there, the percentages that you're paying out to these other platforms to be able to, tap into their audience or just distribute your product, is it was lightly touched on. It basically removes the tax issue. If you, buy Bitcoin, you hold it, cool, you don't worry about the taxes. But if you buy something with it, it's a taxable transaction. And so in this case, you start in dollars. You just use the Bitcoin network to deliver in a better way, in a faster way, to get that instantaneous settlement, but it settles in dollars. So to the buyer, there's not a tax. So you don't have 10,000 transactions that you got to turn in, the way I understood it, at the end of the month. So that's a big point too.
Massive news, plebs. That's what you guys can take away from that one. I think it's massive. I think the only point we didn't hit on was the fact that you can do it anonymously.
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting very kind of nihilistic with the whole vaccine, this and that. I may have a CBDC that's linked up to my medical status. And even if we had some sort of Bitcoin announcement that's linked up through the your Apple wallet, a lot of people have speculated, but that's still going to have certain strings attached to it. What Jack Malice has done is he's actually going to let you to buy things at Wendy's, McDonald's, Starbucks with your private Bitcoin wallet. And you can route the transactions over Tor. So I really suggest anyone who is listening into the podcast, jump on the Bitcoin Magazine YouTube stream and go and watch the Jack Mallers announcement this afternoon, because he shows you a video of him buying things from a grocery store with his private anonymous Bitcoin wallet over Tor. So I think it's massive. And that's one really big announcement that went down today.
That's I think, honestly, the thing that had me like most geeked out was the fact that it could be completely private. So like on the macro, big, tinfoil hat area where we all sit there and go, well, if you're not double jabbed or quadruple, quintuple, whatever it is now jabbed, if you're not walking around with 8 needles sticking out of your body at the time, you cannot purchase anything because they could shut down your payment rails. And that was a big, honestly, there's a fear where you're like, holy crap, like how am I going to feed my family if I'm if the government says, no, you can't buy this thing because you didn't behave the way that we want. This literally, on a global scale, eliminates the ability to have the Chinese social credit score system.
Yeah.
And that's what this does. So the fees are great. The saving on the 3% is huge, and companies are going to jump all over that. And they don't, it's minimal work for them. They don't have to do anything. They just have to accept it. I mean, Jack showed in the video using the price gun. Like, if you ever done self-checkout at Target, and you pull up the wallet on Target and you click it, and that's exactly what it's the same. They don't have to install new things. It's all there.
Minor correction, it's the boomer gun.
Yeah, that's right. The boomer gun. But honestly, the biggest thing, I was excited by all that. And then when he walked into the video, he said, on tour with my own node, running at my house, with it could be Bitcoin that you mine anonymously, money that you earn anonymously, on your node anonymously, paid for anonymously, and the user, the merchant gets the money that they need, and nobody knows what you purchase. So it goes from the big scale of the China social credit system that dismantles that, but then even from day-to-day life, where customers' information is being monetized. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too, because we ran ads we had these different Jesus movies and Movies Plus ad, and literally targeted advertising at people that would respond to religious advertising. And it's how do they get that information? Why do they get that information? I don't think it's right from a privacy standpoint. And so now, if you're running off of Tor, there will be the normies that just want to. Everybody will use Bitcoin. This is what we always talk about. Everyone will use Bitcoin. They won't even know they're doing it, and they'll use it with the regular payment rails. But for the people like us that want to be private and don't want our information out there, it's gone.
I think that's massive, and the fact that you can do it is a really big thing. And I think things like a lot of people say, Bitcoin has no development, Bitcoin has no innovation. But now that we've got Taproot, and then you've got cross-input signature aggregation coming down the pipelines, when every transaction's a coin join by default, just because it makes it cheaper and faster and easier, like Jack's announcement does today for the big guys who are cutting down on that 3% fees, I think it's absolutely massive. But I think we've given that first announcement a really good wrap, and I think we've covered all of that. I think the second kind of big piece of news that went down today was kind of surrounding legal tender. So we got some news from Samson Mao, and we have a little island in the country of Honduras called Prospera, and they have now moved to make Bitcoin legal tender. And we also have another announcement from Portugal, and they have an autonomous region. So I'm not sure exactly what that is, but there's an autonomous region called Madeira in Portugal that is also.
I think this is what the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in the chat at Seattle is what they wanted to become. An actual autonomous zone. Instead, they were trying to farm. That was one of the funniest things. Did you see in the park they were trying to farm?
They also were asking for donations.
Yeah, they were trying to use the parkland to grow vegetables and stuff, and then they immediately, of course, segregated themselves. And it was only certain people of certain races could use certain farms. And they were that's
a whole other tangent. But so legal tender announcements.
I think they're nothing burgers. No, it's exciting, but I don't know. Samson was saying that he wanted 3 microphones because he had 3 mic drop moments. And those might have been the limpest microphones that ever hit. They might have been made of, foam and landed on the ground and didn't make a sound because the Mexico one, just throw that out there. So they came out and they announced, here's the senator from Mexico. And she said, here I have this letter or something. I'm paraphrasing, so if I'm wrong, but I have this letter from the president that says we're going to introduce a legal tender bill in Mexico. And he said he looks forward to meeting and talking about it. And
that's a nothing burger.
And I was
an actual nothing burger.
I think the only positive there is it's kind of the old, once the genie's out of the bottle, it's not going back in.
Yeah.
So that means at some point,
it will.
To announce as a mic drop, it was a little weak.
But the small little territories though.
I'm bullish as fuck. I think Cory and I think we're on different kind of hype levels here on the little the little announcements of the cities, because I think it's really fucking bullish. I was probably, I think a lot of us were expecting another country to make Bitcoin legal tender. So that's why a lot of people were underwhelmed. But I think the fact that the dominoes are falling so fast. So you had El Salvador 6 months ago, and then 2 weeks ago, you had a city in Switzerland make Bitcoin legal tender. Now you've got cities and islands in Portugal and now Honduras and El Salvador and Switzerland. They're all tripping over themselves to make Bitcoin legal tender. And just because it's only a little island or a little city within that country, I think that's still big, because that means that country can't come out and ban Bitcoin. And I forgot as well. So you got Switzerland, Portugal, Honduras, El Salvador, and then 3 weeks ago you had the city of what's this, Rio in Brazil?
Rio de Janeiro.
Bingo. Kane's got us sorted there. I've been talking too much today, please. But they put the city, the capital of Brazil, put 1% of their treasury into Bitcoin, and also said that they would accept Bitcoin for taxes. So that's 5 countries in the past 3 weeks that have had regions or cities or islands of their country make Bitcoin legal tender. So
I think it was bullish. I think, like I said, it came out a little bit flat.
Oh yeah.
So a number of
the
people,
delivery was flat.
Yeah,
it didn't hit hard.
A number of people were like, I was wishing they would have said is legal tender instead of like, hey, we're gonna submit this thing to be. But if I recall, that was how El Salvador originally came out.
Yeah,
it was months.
Originally, it wasn't. Yeah,
it wasn't like we are issuing or.
It's also only Thursday, not Friday. I imagine there'll be something for tomorrow.
Dude, one question I had, and we hadn't talked about it, I just was thinking about it. I think it was Honduras, where the president spoke, and he just kept stressing KYC and AML.
Oh yeah.
Does that kind of bring any reservations at all?
I hope it's an option. Like in El Salvador, you have the option to use the KYC centralized wallet that Bukele's government has put out, or you can use your own private Bitcoin wallet. I hope that that's a similar story as what's happening in Honduras. But I noticed that as well.
He said it a number of times, and I was like, does this guy understand what kind of conference he's at? Yeah. Great news, but
yeah.
What do you mean there?
Yeah. He was like, don't worry, it will be KYC. It will be.
This isn't consensus. This isn't some shitcoin fucking conference we got handed to the elites. It's a Bitcoin conference.
I don't know. I think it's good for these small little. It's good for these small little territories. It's funny. My perspective shifted a little bit whenever I was thinking about my own small town USA that I live in and making it like a circular economy there. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it doesn't have to be on the country level. It can just be on a town by town level.
And then the big thing as well, not on a town by town, but let's say a state. If one state in the United States makes Bitcoin legal tender, does that mean if Biden wants to ban Bitcoin in the United States, that small country who has Bitcoin as legal tender, does that mean they succeed and become their own country? What happens there in terms of...
The Arizona governor wants that, right? Legal tender in Arizona. Yeah. I'm sure Texas and Florida won't be far behind there.
Yeah, I mean, at the state level, they control like their people. So it would actually, the way I understand it, I may be wrong, but if the states push it, that's better than if we kind of like approach it at the federal level.
Yeah. Well, there's states in the U.S. that legalize like marijuana, others don't. So, different rules for different states.
Yeah, if the feds ever want to come in and bust somebody in Colorado for having pot, in theory, the FBI could do that.
Yeah, but they don't because of that
the
hierarchy of power.
Yep. Yeah, which is why I remind everybody that we're not a populist democracy. We are a constitutional republic.
I mean, on that note, recently it was put to me, and I didn't know this, but they were like, if you want to make the biggest difference in your state, then vote and make sure you know who the local sheriff is, because they have the most power.
Oh yeah.
And I don't follow all that, so I didn't know, but I imagine it's the same thing.
Well, I've said this multiple times. If you forgive me if you hear this again to the audience, but Yeah, we learned. So last May, it was like one of those one-off elections, like primary in Pennsylvania, with like nothing serious up for grabs. But the Republicans in Pennsylvania put on an amendment to the Constitution of Pennsylvania that allowed, because the governor of Pennsylvania, he was allowed to do emergency orders and then extend the emergency orders. Hey, they lasted for 90 days, and he could extend them in perpetuity without anybody changing their mind. Changing his mind, it was all up to him. No say from anybody else. And they proposed that the governor would only have 14 days to have the emergency order. And then after that, the only way he could extend it by another 14 days was if he got both houses to agree and vote yes, which would never happen. So it effectively ended the mandates in Pennsylvania. And we voted, me and my wife joked, we voted so hard by pressing that button to put that into law. And they flipped out. The big wigs in the government flipped out because they were they lost their control. And it was fun, walking in on voting day, and seeing other people. We were all giving each other the look, hell yeah, we're taking this down, So vote for your sheriff. Get your sheriff, or in Drew's case, your Mountie on your side.
I think it's different.
Or if you're a Bitcoiner, vote for Jack Mallers.
Yeah.
So I mean,
take action. That's a takeaway there, whether it's your vote or whether it's your money. Don't have your money stuck in some Honduras sketchy KYC government approved wallet. Make sure all of your sats are stored in a safe hardware wallet that you guys like. So another little shout out to our newest show sponsor, a Bitbox 02. Go and get one of those and put your corn somewhere where it's safe. That's where it should be. It should be offline in a Bitbox 02. So definitely go and check them out. And you can get a 5% discount using the code
Bitcoin Made Simple. Get you 5% off, and go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin Made Simple. And you'll see a nice little quote where I talk about how a dumb person like me can use it. And but as I said to Luke earlier, I said, it's open source, which means I'm too stupid to poke around in there and figure out if it's all safe. But there are smart people. There are people that are smarter than me that I know will go in there and poke around. And if there's any, if there is shenanigans going on, it would have been brought to us a lot earlier. Because, geez, I mean, in the Bitcoin world, you can't even post a joke incorrectly that would allude to something negative towards Bitcoin without getting steamrolled by the plebs, as it should be. So, go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin Made Simple. And so
I'm going to step back. Something Luke just brought up. That's one of the most important things going on in the new economy, the networked world, and the way that it works, especially in this time of all this cancel culture. And I don't like this. You offended me, so we're just not going to do it. The fastest way that you can make a change is not by voting, but by moving your wallet. If you move your wallet where you spend your money and only spend it the things you desire or support, that's the fastest way to make a change, because the companies have to change.
And you can vote 100 times a year.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah. And so, if you sit here and I'm going to support this cause and I'm going to go to these rallies, that's cool and all, but it doesn't make change happen as fast as if you say, I'm not buying that good anymore.
Yeah.
Or I'm not using this network, I'm using that one.
And two things that I was thinking about as Jack was talking and about this is one, it's probably a good time to short Visa. I was thinking that.
Not financial advice.
Yeah.
Not financial advice, but
or MasterCard or any of those.
It's just another nail in the existing system. This is better and cheaper version of that. And the other thing I was thinking of, I remember watching the conference back in June last year. Couldn't go. Son was being born, but
minor thing in life.
Minor thing.
Child.
Still wanted to go.
Your wife, for some reason, wanted you to be there. Your wife,
you should have seen the look that she gave me when I said I was considering going. That was a hard no.
That would be a hard no from any pregnant woman out there.
Okay, that didn't land. hands.
It'd be like Jim Gaffigan said. He's like, my wife gave birth to our child in our apartment, and he's like, it was tough because it was loud and I was trying to sleep.
But I remember watching, like, where I was watching Jack, thinking, like, announcing the El Salvador, thinking how big that is, and then just fast forward, it's not even a year, right? Like, it's what is it? April.
Close, yeah. 10 months.
10 months, and think of how many options you now have to like store or purchase your Bitcoin. So I could, in theory, let's just say Arizona becomes legal tender. I could go to the state of Arizona and start using my Bitcoin. I could go to a state that doesn't recognize it, but the company does. I could go to a country where everybody recognizes it. Like, I could go to a city where in a country that doesn't recognize it. Like, this is like a groundswell of different kinds of adoption that eventually, like, this only goes one way. Like, this boulder only rolls downhill.
Well, it's game over for all rent seekers. Like, that's what this is. Is the rent seekers? It's game over. It's the music has stopped, and they're the ones holding the bag, and they're done.
And they're getting done, and they're getting cooked and roasted very quickly. To Drew's point, the boulder is rolling, and it's rolling quickly. Like Switzerland, Brazil, Honduras, El Salvador, Panama pushing friendly Bitcoin laws for it. You've got states in the freest country of the world, the United States, tripping over themselves to put through friendly Bitcoin laws, whether it's Arizona or Texas or Miami. It's just massive, and I think the boat is really rolling, and there is no putting this Jenny back in the bottle.
And then they all can't be hubs, right? Like, everyone uses these sort of buzzwords that they want to be this, like, Bitcoin hub. That's they all can't be hubs, but I mean, only a few of them can really be like big cities. Like, they can all have policies, so they're all going to be fighting over each other to, like, it's how they said in the sovereign individual, like, you'll go where you're treated best, right?
And that's a big point, especially in these times where good countries have kind of eroded, bad countries are getting better, all those things, and people are moving around the world. But most people want to go somewhere safe, and some of the nicer places aren't exactly safe. And as this transition continues, you have the freedom to, like, truly go somewhere that you want to be. And that's nice.
That's a really, really important point. Somebody mentioned the Sovereign Individual book. Guys, if you haven't read it, go and read it. That's the thing that gave me the final kick in the ass to get the fuck out of Australia, because I think it's Balaji who says you shouldn't be thinking of countries around the world as first and third world countries. You should be thinking of them as ascending and descending countries. And I think the countries that have benefited the most from this fiat system, they're going to be the countries that are kind of going to turn the most authoritarian or draconian upon their citizens, because they have these enormous debt burdens. So look at your Western countries, like Europe. You've got Canada over there with Trudeau freezing the bank accounts of citizens attending a freedom convoy.
Which, by the way, is great news. The Jack Mallers thing is great news for something like the freedom convoy in Canada, because that hits home for those people that they were going to be KYC'd to death.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
You could mention it over. Did he mention it during?
Well, he kind of alluded to it. That's unconfiscatable.
Yeah.
He was saying anonymous.
He had wonderful things to say about Elizabeth Warren.
It's massive. Your optionality. That's the takeaway, guys. If you're stuck in Australia or even the UK, which doesn't actually look so bad in the last couple of months.
I know. There must be an election coming up or something. Because all of a sudden the tune is changing a little bit.
Well, even here in the U.S., I mean, we've got our own problems.
Yeah.
And I would say prior to this speech and the passion at the end, where Jack wants to put the U.S. back on the map of innovation and financial system, the U.S. was in that decline state.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about that on the way out, though. But, like, what do you think? What do you guys think as far as like the U.S. and their way to get out of this? Because the U.S. dollar is not going to be the world reserve currency, and everything's not going to be backed by the pegged to the U.S. dollar. That's going to change. We've seen it change. So do they look at something like this and go, you know what? Like it or not, President Biden, you gotta go with it. Like it or not, Elizabeth Warren, this is the only way that America stays on top. So what do you guys think?
Yeah. I'll let you.
Yeah, I've got a lot of opinions on this.
Just a couple.
Yeah. We'll make it short. But
no, go for it.
The key is that base money is important, but base money does not allow the optimal innovation need to drive a growing, budding economy. So the problem is that most, from a maxi perspective, like dollar go to zero, dollar go to zero. It doesn't need to go to zero. It doesn't have to go to zero. Could it go to zero? Sure. But the problem is dollars don't move around the world enough, and everyone is addicted to them, and everyone has dollarized debt, and they can't pay their debts because they don't have access to dollars. So then we have euro dollars that kind of fill that gap for 50 years. That keeps causing crises like 2007-8. Enter the crypto and USDC and the stable coins, UST. That is basically acting like euro dollar 2.0. And now with, this whole Jack Mallers, you basically are pegging dollars to Bitcoin instead of something pegging to the dollar. So the dollars, if there's a shortage of dollars, they don't necessarily have to flow around. You use the Bitcoin rails to make that money flow better, and that will keep the economy, circular. And Luke had a great point, just talking about pegging dollars to oil, and I'll let you run with that.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like Kane said, a lot of people think Bitcoin succeeding is going to kill the United States. I actually think Bitcoin's monetization benefits one country around the world the most, and that is the United States. I actually think it's going to allow them to preserve their global reserve currency status for a lot longer than most people think. And I actually think, I'm writing an article on this topic at the moment, but I think by the end of the decade, if fiat's still around, I think instead of having 130 sovereign currencies around the world, I think you're going to be left with 5, maybe even 3. And I think the US dollar is going to be the last to collapse because of the amount of US dollar denominated debt out there around in the world. There's the euro dollar market, which is $300 trillion in size. Nobody knows how big it is, but everybody needs dollars, okay? They don't need euros. They don't need Chinese yuan. They want dollars. And the fact of it is the US dollar is the cleanest shirt in that dirty, what do they say?
The hamper.
Hamper. The dirty clothes in the hamper. And when Bitcoin's monetizing, like think about this, for example, it doesn't matter what you think the end price of Bitcoin is, whether it's 5 million, 10 million, or 100 million, the fact of it is it's going to be too volatile to use as a unit of account, even when it's 500,000 or even when it's $1 million a coin. So I'll pose a hypothetical to the listener. Let's say the Turkish lira hyperinflates next year and they decide to adopt Bitcoin. Do they just adopt Bitcoin when their Turkish lira hyperinflates, or do they also have to adopt the US dollar to use as a stable pricing mechanism? Because Bitcoin's going to be too volatile to price your goods and services in. So that's essentially, firstly, that's the US dollar milkshake theory proposed by Brent Johnson, the fact that the USD is going to be the last fiat currency to hyperinflate. And I'm writing an article and I'm titling it The Bitcoin Milkshake Theory, because I actually think that the USD and Bitcoin are going to be getting strong together. And it's going to be because a lot of these emerging market currencies and countries, yes, some of them are going to just dollarize. Somewhere like, I don't know, pick a country in Africa, they might hyperinflate their currency, and some of them will pick just dollars. But the ones who pick Bitcoin, they will pick Bitcoin as well as the US dollar to use as a stable pricing mechanism.
And there's two big things there. One, I think one thing that people miss is money has no value. There is no value in money. It's just a unit. Anything can be the unit of exchange. It's the faith that someone will take whatever you use as that unit, and then you'll be able to go out and use that to get a good or service. So the value happens on either side of the unit. You think it's worth less, they think it's worth more, you do a trade, and then somebody can use it again. And so that's really what we're seeing here as these currencies, these fiat currencies collapse, because no monetary unit other than gold throughout 5,000 years has like value. It's what you do on either side. And then, the other thing, to your point about the dollar being one of the last ones standing, if you look at the dollar in the last year, it's risen.
Yeah.
Okay. And Bitcoin's basically flat. Now, it doesn't really matter but that's just the fact. But the dollar rising is not because the dollar is strengthening, it's because there is no such thing as a dollar. The dollar is a basket of other currencies. So what that's telling you is the dollar is rising because the currencies in the basket that make it up are getting weaker. So it really doesn't even matter in that regard. So this movement allowing you to tie dollars to a better financial network could kind of solve all those things and play into what you were talking about.
Yeah, a way to think of the fiat currencies is they're all losing value. The US dollar, the euro, the Turkish lira, but they're losing value at different rates. So you got to think of the fiat currencies as skydivers, right? You got to think of they're all flying out of the plane and they're all losing purchasing power against real goods and services that are tangible and are actually hard to produce. But some of them are just falling at faster rates. And it's just the way the global monetary system is set up with the euro-dollar market and the US dollar denominated debt around the world. You have currencies like the Turkish lira. They're just falling out of the plane a lot quicker and a lot faster than something like the US dollar. Yes, all of those skydivers are going to hit the floor. They're all going to be a pancake one day. But I think the US dollar denominated skydiver will be the last one to pull the ripcord on his parachute. So the analogy goes, and before he hits the ground.
And we got a big driver. If there's no productivity, there's no value. So we have one network, the fiat system, that it's basically largely servicing. So there's not a lot of productivity, not a lot of hammer swinging. Now over in China, they're building stuff and shipping it. But we have this new financial network that is encouraging productivity. It's encouraging builders to build new and innovative stuff, which brings back production, which is missing in the United States.
It's an efficiency amplifier.
Yeah.
That basically the exact opposite of the money printing. The money printing, anything more you print makes up for your deficit in efficiency. This is the exact opposite. The ledger is basically a mirror, right? Like, how productive are you? Well, this is telling you, and you're not as productive as it used to be. So
couldn't agree more. The countries that I think Kane touched on it earlier, the countries that embrace technology have always done the best. I think, was it China back in the 14 or the 1500s? They were actually one of the first countries to develop navigation. And weren't they one of the first countries to have boats? But the Communist Chinese Party start burning down boats or something, and then the Dutch.
They're just more, they want to stay kind of within themselves. Their goals for thousands of years has not been to go and take over foreign lands. Now, if they believe it's their land and it's close, they'll go to take it over, kind of the Taiwan thing. But like where all the other empires are like, hey, I started and I got a little bit bigger and I got a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to go over the pond and I'm going to go over the seas and so that's where they're a little bit different. So yeah, they started paper money and all those things, but their goal was not to take over the world.
Yeah. It's I thought about with like it was funny you saying the mirror in the ledger, like being the mirror of how much productivity you had. I reminded of the Albert Einstein quote that I put on Twitter at some point. But I think it was Einstein. I don't know. I could be wrong. Somebody's gonna be sitting at home going like, "You Cory is so stupid." But it was that energy. It's a physics principle that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. And so it made me think when I was having my deep thoughts about it, it made me think that energy that made me think about my Bitcoin in cold storage a lot, because my energy, whenever I would expel it before, it wouldn't get destroyed, but it would get transferred to somebody wealthier because I was losing my ability to contain my wealth and conserve my losing my train of thought and keep my purchasing power. But now I can put it in there, I can save it, and it's not destroyed, and I can preserve it. I thought that was kind of, I had a profound thought and realized that nobody can steal your energy anymore.
Which thermodynamically,
which is
sound.
the first thing to come along that's preserves it over time. and actually increases it because it's deflationary. Like, so every other currency, like you work hard, you put your money away, and then you come back a year later and you're like, I need to keep working because
you work hard.
Yeah, I need to work. And someone said, I forget who it was saying, at one of the panels was basically talking about the inverse of that is because Bitcoin is deflationary, you're highly incentivized to work harder today than 10 years from now.
Okay.
Because as the price increases, the amount of sats you're going to get in the future are going to be less. So like it's the exact opposite of the current system where you're like, well, I'm going to work hard and I'm losing my purchasing power. It's like, I work hard today. I don't need to, in theory, work as hard in the future. So it creates this almost like everyone trying to get through the same door. And I can't think of another system that like incentivizes productivity like this. I've never seen anything like this.
No one in human history has seen anything like this. Bitcoin's a once in a species invention, and it's such a beautiful thing. I think that's probably maybe a good note to wrap up on this.
And in closing thoughts, do you guys think Satoshi is here at the conference?
No.
I actually don't.
No, I don't think so either.
I have a different theory on it. Satoshi was too long for this.
Too long for this. Well, cliffhanger.
Yeah.
There you go.
You have to invite me back.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same
Dude,
thing.
I can go down. Luke knows you can hear him. I've gone down some rabbit holes on theories of Satoshi. That would be a fun one. So we'll have to do that. But
Kane, what a hook.
yeah, that's a great hook. And thanks again to Bitbox, the Bitbox02 hardware wallet, for sponsoring us. And go to mymoviesplus.com to check out some Bitcoin documentaries and other fun movies, and help support my company and get me going in the right direction, so that maybe we'll talk less on podcasts and other people will do it. If I make more money, then I'll hire people, and then you have to hear me less. So let's do that. But thanks, Kane, and thanks, Drew, for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having us. That was a lot of fun. We could have talked for a lot longer.
Yeah. Maybe there's still tomorrow. So. All right, guys. See you.
Okay, thank you.
See you guys.